But soon, Liu Hongtao's smile disappeared. The moment the martial steel lit up, Dollar summoned the Bloody Slayer and ran toward the ape called Luo like a hurricane, a golden spear in his hand. In the blink of an eye, Dollar was in Luo's face, his spear stabbing Luo's stomach. Luo Tengyang roared and hacked his mace madly at the mutant sawfish spear, making the spear fly out of Han Sen's hand. Liu Hongtao was ready to applaud, but then he saw that Dollar calmly reached for a golden katana at his waist and slashed it toward Luo Tengyang, who was only inches away. The ape did possess great strength, but it was also clumsy. When fighting from afar, this disadvantage wouldn't show. But at such a short distance, there was no time for the ape to dodge. Crack! The 9-foot-tall ape was cut in half. Luo only gave a whimper before he turned into his own body and died. Blood flowed like a river. Everyone was blankly watching Han Sen, who put the katana back into its sheath and took back the spear calmly. Dollar killed Luo, who had shapeshifted into a sacred blood creature in less than 10 seconds. After the moment of silence, cheers broke out like a tsunami. Everyone was calling Dollar's name, bringing the whole martial hall to a boil. Su Zioqiao was the happiest person among all. Twerking on the stands, he shouted, "Dollar, Dollar, I love you," like a mouse loves rice. Liu Hongtao was dumbfounded. He sat there like a deflated balloon, not accepting the fact that Luo had died. Red-hoofed beast. My red-hoofed beast. How could this be? Liu Hongtao almost spilled out blood. Son of Heaven gritted his teeth very hard. He didn't care that Luo was killed, but his ape beast soul was one of the few sacred blood beast souls he had. It, along with all the mutant beast souls, was ruined with the death of Luo. Son of Heaven's heart was bleeding. "Dollar, I'll make you regret you were born," Son of Heaven cursed inwardly. He very badly wanted to kill Dollar, but felt somewhat helpless about it. Before, there had been a chance to besiege Dollar with his gang. Now that Dollar had wings, that plan would no longer work. Now Son of Heaven regretted very much that he had used his one-use sacred blood wasp arrow. If he still had it, he would be able to kill Dollar, even if Dollar could fly. He thought more about it and realized that if he had never used that arrow, Dollar wouldn't have the Bloody Slayer beast soul. Without that shape-shifting beast soul, Dollar couldn't have killed Luo so easily. Thinking of this, Son of Heaven wanted to eat Dollar alive. There was something stuck in his chest which he could neither swallow nor spit out. I must find out who Dollar is. If I couldn't kill him in God's sanctuary, I will kill him in the Alliance. Son of Heaven was determined to have Dollar killed, or he could never let this go. His loss was indeed huge. Luo was dead, and he had lost many beast souls, including a sacred blood one, while Dollar walked free. Han Sen did not dare to get stuck in the crowd and simply flew away with his wings, not giving the audience any chance to approach him. Dollar killing Luo Tengyang was the headline in Steel Armor Shelter. People had posted the story on the Skynet. But without a way to record images in God's sanctuary, words alone didn't attract much attention. In addition, Luo Tengyang was a nobody, so no one cared. After all, this was only the martial arts contest within Steel Armor Shelter. His opponents in the next few rounds all quit before they fought and simply didn't show up. Killing someone in seconds was a brutal thing to do, and that someone had even shapeshifted into a sacred blood beast soul. No one had the courage to put their life on the line. Some people even accused Dollar of being a murderer and posted articles describing how cruel he was. Su Zioqiao and other Bullseye members were pissed off by those articles and wrote about the bet between Su and Liu, leading to compliments from Dollar's fans. But it had not changed the fact that Dollar had killed someone. Later, someone posted anonymously that Luo Tengyang had mutilated and raped many victims using Son of Heaven's gang when he was alive. Many people from Steel Armor Shelter echoed the post and said it was a great thing that Dollar had done. Luo Tengyang was an animal. If I were Dollar, I would have killed him long before the martial arts contest. Well done. 32 likes. An animal who deserved it. Ignorant, all of you. Murder is murder, regardless of who was killed. Dollar is a murderer. Dollar is a piece of sh-t. Don't comment on something you don't understand. Everyone in Steel Armor Shelter knows it was justice well served. Sen, check out my new mount. Su Zioqiao was riding his newly gained mutant red-hoofed beast in the yard of the Bullseye team, bragging. The mutant red-hoofed beast looked somewhat like an antelope with a pair of buffalo horns on its head. It had the size of a camel and was satin black all over, except for its 4 blood-red hooves. Han Sen was very depressed to see this gorgeous mount. He wasted so much effort in helping this brat win a mutant mount, while he himself ended up with nothing. Although he did have a mutant mount beast soul, it was aquatic and was useless on the land. After the martial arts contest, I have to find a way to gain a beast soul mount. It was too much trouble going everywhere on foot, and it was bad for my image as well, Han Sen thought to himself. Dark Swamp was out of the question. Even if he gained a Mount Beast soul there, it would be something ugly like a toad. Han-sen, come to my office. Young Manly called from on the second floor. Sen, you offended her again. Suzayo Kiao ran over and asked, grinning. Why would I do that? Han-sen said, touching his nose. That was not a kind look she had. You have to be careful, Suzayo Kiao laughed. You know about looks. Why don't you say you are psychic as well? Han-sen laughed and went to the second floor. Manly, you asked for me. Han-sen asked. I do not know what Qin Xuan saw in you, but since she asked me to help you prepare for the entrance exam, I'll do my best. Starting from today, you will report to me at the teleport station every day and I will train you. Hard. You better be prepared as you will suffer. Blackhawk isn't just any school. Young Manly paused and said casually, if you cannot bear it, you better ask Qin Xuan to allow you to quit. I will not stop you. When do I start? Han-sen asked. Now, said Young Manly before she got up and teleported to planet Roca with Han-sen. Young Manly took Han-sen to the test hall at the teleport station, which was a military standard test hall that provided more accurate tests. The last time he took the test, he had approached 10 in all his numbers. Having gained lots of mutant and sacred geno points after that, his fitness index should be well beyond 10 now. Do the test, Young Manly commanded coldly. If you insist, Han-sen muttered and slowly walked toward the entrance of the test hall. Han-sen had made up his mind not to use his full strength, in case Yang could tell something was wrong. Fortunately, Han-sen was very confident in his control of his own body. The more he practiced Jadeskin, the more he was amazed by this hyper-geno art. He hadn't practiced it for long, but he already felt that he could adjust each bone and each muscle in his body. With Jadeskin, he could even change his heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature to a certain extent. The more he understood Jadeskin, the more scared he felt. Soon, Han-sen completed all the test items and came out of the test hall covered with sweat. Young Manly had no idea that Han-sen looked so tired mainly because he was trying to control the test result. To control one's reflexes and heartbeat was extremely difficult in such sophisticated test items. If Han-sen hadn't practiced Jadeskin, he wouldn't have been able to hide his real physical condition at all. Young Manly looked through Han-sen's test results and said, less than 10 in all items, but close. 10 is just the standard of ordinary military schools. For Blackhawk, even for specially recruited students, 10 was just a narrow pass. After reading something on a smart machine, she said, during the time we have left, which is little more than a month, I will make all your fitness index past 10. Meanwhile, I will train you in archery. Only with proper archery skills will you be specially recruited. Manly, may I ask, without special enrollment, what kind of score is Blackhawk looking for? Han-sen asked curiously. When you are able to beat me, you could be admitted to Blackhawk on your own. Young Manly went to the gym, not even glancing at Han-sen. Han-sen followed her to the gym and looked at all sorts of training equipment in the gym curiously. Many of the equipment he had never seen before. Many soldiers were training in the gym. The teleport station was part of the military, so everything here followed military standard. The only difference was that most soldiers here were new to the army and had never been to the battlefield. Those who could be assigned here typically had certain connections, or else they would have been sent to the front. Young Manly led Han-sen in front of a sealed device the size of a train compartment. The device was around 150 feet long. She turned it on and entered some data before she took off her jacket, revealing a black professional training suit underneath. The suit was made of a material unknown to Han-sen, which had a form-fitting effect. Han-sen noticed that Young Manly had a great body. Her legs were especially long and straight, seducing one to touch them. Look carefully, I will only show you once. For today, you need to finish this training every day before you go anywhere else. Young Manly said and went into the device. The moment Young Manly entered the device, all soldiers who were exercising came around and drooled over the holographic image displayed. Young's body is getting more and more perfect. I could play with those legs for 3 years. 3 years. I can play with them for 30 years. Check out her ass. These animals stared at the holographic image almost with their eyeballs popped out. Inside the device, Young Manly had started. There are many exercise items in the device and she finished them one by one effortlessly. The items didn't look very difficult either. Brother, what is this device? Looks like it is not that difficult. Han-sen asked the soldier curiously. Not difficult. Kiddo, you are too naive. Young seems effortless because she's got great fitness index. If you were to do it, you would be too tired to finish 3 items. This is called Gravity Trainer. There are such devices on all interstellar aircrafts and warships, and they are used to adjust the internal gravity. With the parameters set by Young, one would need at least 10 in fitness index to train. Or else walking in the device alone would be a torture, even worse than screwing 7 times in one night. Son, all you could do is pray. These soldiers knew Han Sen. They were all aware that Qin Xuan had often called him into the combat room. Young Manly stepped out of the gravity trainer in a little while, and the soldiers quickly scattered back to do their training as if nothing had happened. Young Manly had some sweat on her forehead. She put on her jacket and said, "Now you complete the exercise and then come to find me." She left with no intention of watching Han Sen do the exercise. Young Manly knew very well that Han Sen's physical fitness index was only close to 10 and it was impossible for him to finish such intense training. She just wanted to humble him so that he would follow her orders better. A soldier ran toward Han Sen when the latter was about to enter the gravity trainer to start training. Putting his hand over Han Sen's shoulder, the soldier smiled and said, "Buddy, if you can bring us some R-rated holographic resources when you come here in the future, I'll let you in on a secret and make the gravity trainer a piece of cake for you." "Deal. What's the secret?" Han Sen agreed, knowing he was asking for pawns. "Great." The soldier patted Han Sen's shoulder and whispered to his ear. Once the parameters were set up, Yang could tell if you have modified them after. However, the device has a protective mechanism, which is designed mainly to prevent dangers to your body. My method allows you to change the parameters through this mechanism so that the result doesn't show the modification. So, you can easily complete the test without being found out by Yang. Fantastic. What should I do? Han Sen asked. "I can tell you the secret, but a deal is a deal. You need to get me those R-rated holographic resources or you will regret it," said the soldier. "Brother, rest assured. I'll get you those." Han Sen patted his own chest and guaranteed. Han Sen went into the gravity trainer and heard the AI. "Okay," Han Sen replied. "Confirmation completed. Start testing in 10 seconds. Countdown starts. 10, 9, 8. When the countdown was over, Han Sen felt his body sank, as if he had suddenly gained a few hundred pounds. Han Sen did not use the soldier's method. He wanted to see if he could finish the exercise like Young Manly did. Han Sen was not used to the added gravity and warmed up a little before he started. When Young Manly was back from her office, it was already in the afternoon. She thought Han Sen should be worn out like a dead dog by now and would probably be more obedient in the future. When Young Manly returned to the gym, she was surprised to see Han Sen chatting with the soldiers there. The soldiers were even showing him how to play with all sorts of devices. He looked rather lively and not tired at all. "Han Sen, I asked you to train. What are you doing?" Annoyed, Young Manly asked coldly. The soldiers were scared away like mice met a cat, leaving Han Sen standing there alone in front of Young Manly. "Captain, I've completed the training." Han Sen saluted the way the soldiers had just taught him. "Completed." Young Manly frowned and walked quickly toward the gravity trainer. She pulled out the data and as she checked each item, her face became darker and darker. There was no doubt that Young Manly did not think the data was real. Only those who with more than 12 in fitness index could achieve this. She had just tested Han Sen's fitness and he wasn't even a 10. So, this could not be his real performance. "Who told you about the protection mechanism?" Young Manly stared at Han Sen madly. Of course, she knew about this trick. "What protection mechanism? I do not understand what you are talking about." On the next day, Han Sen brought pawns to the soldier who had asked him for them. The soldier was so happy that he wanted to become sworn brothers with Han Sen and said Han Sen would be responsible for his happiness from now on. Young Manly spent half an hour to explain some archery knowledge and gave Han Sen a few tasks to finish on his own. Han Sen had learned basic archery knowledge at school, and what Yang taught him was more practical, which benefited him a lot. Yang was indeed an expert. There were a lot of tasks for him to complete, which included the gravity trainer. Han Sen wanted to use the gravity trainer himself. This time he used the protection mechanism to adjust the parameters, not to reduce the gravity, but to increase the gravity a notch so that it suited his real fitness level better. The gym did not seem to be the place where ordinary soldiers trained. Han Sen had never seen other soldiers here than the ones he talked to. During lunch break, Han Sen was chatting with the soldiers he knew. The soldier who asked Han Sen for pawns regarded Han Sen and asked, "Sen, in addition to bow and arrows, what other weapons do you use?" "Dagger." Han Sen showed him the Z-Steel dagger. Han Sen only knew the nicknames of these soldiers. This guy's name was Gambler. Han Sen learned from others that he was greedy and lewd. Gambler took over Han Sen's dagger and played with it. The dagger seemed like a living thing in his hand, making dazzling moves like a snake. "Watch this." Gambler held the dagger an inch away from Han Sen's eyes. With a simple wave of his hand, the dagger disappeared in front of Han Sen and Gambler's hand was empty. "ST, your nickname should be Magician." Han Sen looked everywhere and didn't see the dagger. Gambler laughed and shook his hands in front of Han Sen. He curled his fingers and the dagger returned to his hands magically. How did you do that? Han Sen widened his eyes. Pretty cool, huh? Gambler asked proudly. Yep. Han Sen quickly nodded. Dazzling, no. Gambler played with the dagger. For sure. Han Sen nodded again. Want to learn? Gambler looked at Han Sen with a faint smile. I do. Do you want to teach me? Han Sen asked. If you can bring me all my girls' new movies, I will teach you. Gambler said with a smile. No problem. Han Sen agreed, knowing the girls Gambler referred to were certain porn stars. Although it cost some money to buy new movies, Han Sen really wanted to learn these tricks. Come, we will find a place so that I can show you. Gambler took Han Sen aside and told him the key to it. Han Sen then found out that it was not really magic but finger tricks. Although it was taking advantage of the blind spots, the most important part was one's control of the muscles on the arm. Yes, it was the entire arm instead of just the hand. Gambler told him that this trick was called Heaven in Sleeves, also known as Sleeve-a-Blade. It was passed down in his family as the foundation of their family business. The dirk Gambler used was specially made. Thin and sharp, it had a crescent-like double-edged blade but no hilt. Gambler was playing with one dirk in each hand, and it looked like there were two butterflies dancing around his hands, which was amazing to watch. How long will it take for me to become a master like you? Han Sen looked at Gambler enviously. Gambler smiled. I started at the age of 3 and became better at 7. I'm now intermediate and still far from being a master. He gave the dagger back to Han Sen and said, do not underestimate this trick. Although it is just lays the foundation, but it is fundamental and will benefit you for the rest of your life. Han Sen was very interested in Sleeve-a-Blade, so he went to check out Hand of God on the holographic training machine. Soon he understood why Gambler asked him to play this game. This was a holographic game. Its idea was like whack-a-mole, but instead of using fingers alone, the spots to touch could appear everywhere around one's arms. One must use all muscles rationally to hit all the spots to pass a level. It was highly demanding for one's dexterity and accuracy. In addition to the beginner level, the game was divided into 3 levels: Evolver, Surpass, and Demigod. The intention of the classification was obviously to correspond with the 3 phases of God's sanctuary, and to guide players to choose the right level. Han Sen first chose the beginner level. Actually, when Gambler said level up, he meant to clear the beginner level. As for which level Gambler himself was in, Han Sen had no way of knowing. Soon, Han Sen was hooked. He was not that smooth in the beginning, but was soon addicted to the satisfaction gained from hitting rapidly as he got familiar with the game. Faster, faster, faster. Once started, the game would push one to pursue the exhilaration and speeding up. But Han Sen did not have much time to play this game. After a few rounds in the martial arts contest, Han Sen reached the final match as expected. Not sure it was good luck or bad luck, Han Sen didn't encounter either Fist Guy or Son of Heaven. Son of Heaven had eliminated Fist Guy, and King Xuan had eliminated Son of Heaven. The final match was between King Xuan and Han Sen. In fact, Han Sen wanted to fight Son of Heaven more so that he would have the opportunity to kill Son of Heaven on the stage. Usually the young master was surrounded by many strong men and there was almost no chance for Han Sen to approach him. On the day of the final match between Dollar and King Xuan, the stands were packed with at least 100,000 audience. Even many of those who didn't register came. In addition to it being the final match, it was popular also thanks to the fame of Dollar and King Xuan. King Xuan was undoubtedly the legend of Steel Armor Shelter. As a woman, she had been the champion of the martial arts contest for several years now, although she was never among the chosen. There was no doubt that she was the #1 in Steel Armor Shelter. In addition, she was also beautiful. All of these made her the goddess of Steel Armor Shelter. People loved, feared, and respected her. Dollar's recent rise was even more legendary. He came from nowhere, but there had been so many headlines and controversies about him. Both seizing Son of Heaven's sacred blood beast soul and killing Luo Tanyang made Dollar a somewhat negative figure. But smashing through the robot channel and fighting Golden Horn Shura made him an idol. When one legend met the other, everyone wanted to know about the outcome. Will King Xuan continue to be the invincible goddess? Or will Dollar become the new champion? Everyone was looking forward to this match. When King Xuan and Dollar almost arrived at the same time, all expectations peaked and the cheers were deafening. Dollar, a bet. King Xuan didn't move, but looked at Han Sen with a smile. The audience heard King Xuan's words and quieted down, wanting to know what bet she was proposing. What bet? Though looking calm, Han Sen was puzzled. Did she want to buy the victory from him? If you lose this one, join my Steel Armor gang and be my deputy. When I evolve and go to Second God's Sanctuary, you will be the head of the gang. King Xuan had a sweet smile on. There was an uproar among the audience. No one thought King Xuan would say something like this. Steel Armor Gang was far more than just a gang. It also represented the presence of military and the alliance in God's sanctuary. King Xuan's was asking Dollar to become the official spokesman of the alliance at Steel Armor Shelter. It was a great honor. Sorry, I cannot accept this condition. But unexpectedly, Dollar refused King Xuan's offer. Why? King Xuan looked at Han Sen, stunned. The head of Steel Armor Gang was a position pursued by many. It was a ladder toward the power center of the alliance, but Dollar turned it down without considering. The audience also thought Dollar was crazy. How can he turn down such a great offer? There are 2 reasons, Han Sen smiled and said. First, you cannot beat me. The answer left many slightly shocked, while King Xuan asked, what is the second reason? I will go to second God's sanctuary earlier than you, so although I appreciate your kindness, I can't take your offer, Han Sen calmly said. His reply was arrogant. With her gang, King Xuan could gain Geno points a lot more easily than most people. While Dollar was on his own, he said he could evolve earlier than her. But no one felt that Dollar was mistaken. It seemed that everything was likely with Dollar and he shouldn't be questioned. King Xuan smiled. Well, then I would like to propose something else. If you lose, tell me who you really are. King Xuan's words had led to a burst of cheers on the stands. All the audience were dying to know who Dollar was. King Xuan's proposal was embraced by all. And if you lose? Han Sen grinned and asked. You can propose something as well. Smiling, King Xuan looked full of confidence. It was as if she would never lose. An S-class license at St. Hall. Han Sen was obsessed with the hyper-Geno arts in St. Hall. He had neither the money nor the license. Deal. King Xuan did not even lift her eyes before she agreed, as if an S-class license was nothing to her. Then let's begin. Han Sen drew the Shura katana. He didn't dare to slack when fighting King Xuan, who had the most Geno points among all in the shelter. She was probably 10 sacred Geno points away from maxing out on everything. Han Sen had never seen King Xuan using her full strength, but he still thought he stood a chance. Han Sen's biggest advantage was his understanding of King Xuan. She would never thought that Dollar was in fact Han Sen, whom she had fought a million times. Although she was always kicking his ass, he had learned a lot of her fighting habits. King Xuan, on the other hand, knew nothing about Dollar. King Xuan stretched her hand and a beautiful purple butterfly started to dance in her palm, which turned into a purple dagger. Elegant and demure, she stood there like a goddess. Han Sen had seen her using this sacred blood poisonous butterfly dagger once, but it was on the purple winged dragon. The dagger wasn't really effective as the dragon was gigantic. However, it would be different for a person. Han Sen didn't know if he could stand the toxin if stabbed with the dagger. So, Han Sen wasn't going to give King Xuan any opportunity to attack. He wielded the katana using Blade Storm and the strike was so fast as if it could break the wind. It was a similar strike as this one that had ended Luo Tanyang's life. King Xuan smiled and moved away like a butterfly, dodging the fierce strike and stab her dagger at Han Sen's throat. Han Sen stepped forward and ignored the dagger. The katana was wielded at King Xuan again. That was a move that put both their lives at stake. If King Xuan did not dodge again, she would be cut in half. Since Han Sen was in sacred blood armor, he had a bigger chance at survival even cut by her sacred blood dagger. Scoundrel, King Xuan scowled, gracefully moved sideways and avoided Han Sen's attack. Han Sen was thrilled to see King Xuan moving away. A storm of katana strikes poured on the lady as Blade Storm was fully brought into play. Each strike was faster than the last. King Xuan was forced to defend herself and had no chance to attack. Han Sen knew well that King Xuan was nimble. He had been practicing Ghost Hunt for a long time now and had improved a lot on his footwork. However, he had never been able to get close to her in any combat except for the first time when she had underestimated him. Sure enough, King calmly dodged all the strikes Han Sen made calmly as if she were dancing. Meanwhile, she fought back from time to time with grace. None of it mattered to Han Sen. He hacked the katana at her regardless and worked both Blade Storm and Jade Skin to the maximum. The coolness gushed in his veins like a spring and activated every cell in his body. King Xuan quietly warded off all attacks from Han Sen. She was very confident in herself. It took her a few years to finally get to the first stage of atomic fission. With her current Geno points and beast souls, King Xuan believed that she could become the chosen this year, and even the first place was not impossible. Atomic fission was an advanced hyper-Geno art, which could fortify all body parts. As suggested by its name, it was close to the root of all hyper-Geno arts and could produce long-lasting power that improved one's physique significantly. It would be the perfect hyper-Geno art if it wasn't so difficult to get started. King Xuan had started to practice atomic fission under her family members' guidance since she was a toddler, but her progress had been slow. Now she had practiced it for 2 decades and she just got to the first stage a few months ago. Yes, just the first stage. But she had made a leap in her strength already with the first stage. 20 years of practice did not go wasted. Once she got somewhere, her improvement was skyrocketing. Even Son of Heaven, who was on the same level as she, was easily defeated by her this year. It wasn't that Son of Heaven was weak, but that she had become too strong after getting to the first stage of atomic fission. King Xuan believed that she could definitely reach the top this year and dollar wouldn't be an issue. King Xuan wasn't even thinking about winning or losing, but how to win dollar to better impress him. King Xuan did not care about the storm of blades. As fierce as it looked, it couldn't hurt her. She only felt it was a bit troublesome as she didn't want to kill dollar. If you like driving, I'll let you drive. I will wait until you are so completely exhausted that you can't even move your arm. By then I will still be calm and appreciate your despair. King Xuan smiled and dodged another strike, thinking, as long as you lose to me this way, you will think I am invincible and never dare to fight me again. King Xuan intended to burn Han Sen out. The way Han Sen wielded his katana would consume his strength fast. Each strike brought all his potentials out at the cost of his stamina. For King Xuan's atomic fission, stamina was one of its key strengths. A metaphor would be that a nuclear power plant was much more efficient than a coal-fired power plant. As King Xuan kept avoiding Han Sen's attacks, she was patiently waiting for him to be worn down. The blood of the audience were set afire. Han Sen's katana was swift and fierce, and King Xuan's dancing was ethereal and elegant. Their movements were so fast that they became a blur. It was indeed a great match, and in the eyes of ordinary people, Han Sen was chasing King Xuan and seemed to have the upper hand. Cheers of dollar could be heard from time to time. It seems that the champion in steel armor shelter would be someone else this year. Of course, dollar is absolutely invincible. Haha, men are the master of this world. Tremble, women. Young Manly curled her lips with disdain, looking like a goddess who didn't deign to argue with the mortals. He had experienced how strong King Xuan was. He had always known about atomic fission. If he had wanted to learn it, he could have. But as it took at least 2 decades for someone talented to get to the first stage, he chose not to. Indeed, everyone knew that this was a great hyper-geno art, but few dared to practice it. No one wanted to put 2 decades into a higher geno art that they didn't know would work or not. If one failed, one would not even have a chance to start over with a different hyper-geno art. Son of Heaven hadn't had the courage to practice atomic fission, and regretted it now that he saw how well King Xuan was doing. How experienced and knowledgeable you are. The young man quickly kissed up to him. But next to them, another young man commented abruptly, "Keep silent if you don't understand it. Don't you have any common sense? Men are simply stronger than women, and it will be King Xuan who is worn down first." Son of Heaven was provoked to wrath, but he paused when he saw the young man's face. It was the young master named King who had once hired Han Sen as his bodyguard. Yuan and the rest of the group were also there. King, Son of Heaven, gave a hollow laugh and explained, "There are differences between men and women. But those differences were negligible. Dollar's stamina is far worse than that of King Xuan, who had reached the first stage in atomic fission. I believe in half an hour, Dollar wouldn't even be able to wield his katana. How come I can't see that?" King was not convinced and said, "My father told me that women are inferior to men. I know that Dollar will win and that woman will definitely lose." Son of Heaven smiled with confidence. "King, no need to debate. We will see what happens in half an hour. You will find out who is right at that time." But half an hour later, Son of Heaven's face became a bit stiff as Han Sen was still fiercely brandishing the katana at the same speed. "Son of Heaven, didn't you say that Dollar would be worn out in half an hour? I'm telling you my dad was right. Men are better than women," King said proudly. Looking at Son of Heaven's grim face, Yuan smiled and did not speak. Son of Heaven was really upset. According to common sense, Dollar would not last half an hour. With that kind of strikes, few in First God's Sanctuary could. It seems that Dollar has practiced some special hyper-geno art that improves his stamina. Son of Heaven, you are a guy. Why do you keep cheering for a woman? My dad says that men are the best. I think Dollar must be better than that woman. You have no vision." King obviously did not agree with Son of Heaven's argument. Son of Heaven almost choked. Pretending to be calm, he said, "King, if you don't believe me, keep on watching." Other than Son of Heaven, King Xuan felt something was off as well. Attacking at such a high speed, Dollar had sustained way longer than she had expected, making her alarmed and surprised. In such a high-intensity duel, even she had begun to feel a little tired. Dollar, however, seemed to feel nothing and kept attacking with the katana swiftly, as if he could do this forever, giving birth to a trace of powerlessness in Qin Xuan's mind. No, I cannot go on like this. He must have also practiced some hyper-geno art that enhances his stamina. Maybe I will be the one who is worn out first. Qin Xuan gritted her teeth and dodged another strike. She took back her dagger and 2 beast souls appeared in the air. One beast soul was the mutant golden lion that she had always used. She instantaneously shapeshifted into a magnificent golden lion. And the other beast soul was a ball of blue liquid, which poured into the lion and turned its golden body blue. The lion also grew larger and looked fiercer. That is sacred blood water spirit. Qin Xuan actually got its beast soul. Son of Heaven was shocked to see that. He knew very well how scary a sacred blood water spirit was. It could coexist with another creature and make that creature exceptionally strong. Qin Xuan made the final attack to the water spirit when she was hunting it with Son of Heaven, who did not know she got the beast soul. It seemed that the beast soul had the same power as the creature it once belonged to. With the help of water spirit beast soul, the mutant golden lion had become stronger than normal sacred blood creatures. Qin Xuan could then fully display the power of atomic fission. Son of Heaven was surprised. Qin Xuan has become so strong. It seems that this year she could be among top 3 of the chosen. Han Sen knew Qin Xuan really well. He glanced at her expression and knew something was off. Just before she summoned the water spirit beast soul, he summoned his wings and flew up high. Everyone was stunned, including Qin Xuan. Who could have thought Dollar, who looked like he was going for mutual destruction, had flown away the minute Qin Xuan shapeshifted. Qin Xuan, who had shapeshifted, did not know what to do. These 2 beast souls were fierce enough for sure. Even Dollar used the sacred blood shapeshifting beast soul, she could beat him. She chose the moment when Han Sen was making the most powerful strikes to shapeshift so that he wouldn't disengage himself. She didn't have sacred blood wings, so she wanted to end the match as soon as possible. What she did not think of was that Dollar, who was chasing her, just flew away faster than rabbits. Qin Xuan suddenly felt very embarrassed. As fierce as she was right now, she could not fly, and as a lion, she could no longer use weapons. So she couldn't even throw things at Han Sen. That will be all for now. I hope you find this story interesting. Leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss the next part of this story. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.